Welcome back. In this video we are going to solder a microprocessor into a printed circuit board. You can see where it goes here. I'll give a little bit of close-up in a little bit. And we're going to solder this diode into the board also. So let's get started. First thing you want to do is you want to make sure the board is clean. I've already cleaned it, both front and back. After you do that, you really don't want to touch where you're going to solder because you don't want to get any oils from your hands on the board. Now, whatever chip that you do, happens just to be a PIC Micro. There's a correct orientation, and there's marks on the board, and there's marks on the micro to tell you which way it goes. These pins I had to bend just slightly in to be able to get them into the holes. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it in. Sometimes you just have to finagle it a little bit. Push it in all the way. And you can see on the back, all the pins are through. I'll give a close-up of this in just a minute. Now, at the same time, so I don't have to, or I can do the solder joints at the same time, I also want to put this diode in. This diode goes right here where the symbol is. Okay, you can usually find where it goes on the schematic or on the printed circuit board by looking at the schematic. And you'll notice on the diode there's a gray stripe, and you'll notice on the printed circuit board that there's a stripe, and that is where the diode goes. Now, you want to take note because you want to bend these leads to fit into those two holes. So the best way to do that is to take our needle nose pliers, and I usually, just because I've done this a lot, I'll put a slight bend in. I'll put it in the circuit board. Take note of where the other bend needs to be. And make that bend. Then I'll put it in the whole way. Give it a little added pressure. Make sure it's all the way in, and make sure that the part is actually flat on the board. That's important. We don't want it raised off. Now, if it's a little bit loose, you can take these and bend them 45 degrees or something a little bit smaller, just to make sure that the part won't fall out when you are soldering it. Now, I have my helping hands here. I could clip it in there and solder it using the helping hands. You can lay it down, but as you can see, it's a little bit rocky, and soldering that might be a few issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my vise, which I can just put in, tighten it up, and that holds it nice and neat so I can make these solder joints. Alright, I'm going to zoom in and we'll get to the soldering. Okay, I've zoomed in on the board so you can see it much better. I have my 6040 solder, which is has the flux in it. We talked about that in a previous video. I have my iron ready to go. I picked a tip that's good for through-hole components. I have my sponge ready to go. I have my flux ready, or my tinning ready to go. I'll put a little bit of tin on the iron, and I'm going to start. The way you do this, you can easily just bring the iron in just a second or two, hit it with a little bit of solder to get it started, and there you go. You should have kind of a volcano shaped looking solder joint. I'm going to do the same to the opposite corner. Again, if you notice, you don't have to hold it on there very long. Now, when you do a component like this, because of heat, I like to go every other pin just to make sure the pins don't overheat. If you look close, you can see the flux kind of fan out a little bit around each pin. So we're going to do each one individually. Takes a little time. You definitely want to take your time when you do this. You have a very hot iron in your hand. Notice how I'm kind of skipping around at times. Again, you don't want to do two pins next to each other because you don't want to overheat them. Okay, so there's your micro. Now this larger one over here, obviously there's more mass in this lead and that lead, so because of that it takes a little bit more solder. Alright, some gunk on the end of my iron, so I'm going to reflow that, and I'm going to reflow this one. Again, this one takes a little bit longer simply because there's a bigger or more mass in the lead. I'm going to reflow this one just to make it look better. And you'll notice that again, it kind of looks like a volcano coming up the lead. Now, we have to clip these, obviously. The way we do that, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And the way we do that, so we use our clippers, and what we'll do is we'll get in nice and tight, and then we'll put our finger over top of it, and then we'll cut it off. If we don't do that, a lot of times that will shoot out. We talked about that in class being a very bad thing. Okay, you see it deflected off my finger and went over there. Okay, so those are the solder joints. Let's see if I can get you a good picture of it. No globs, all nice clean solder joints, and on the other side everything stayed in the position it was supposed to. That's soldering on a printed circuit board.